Hello and welcome to the viewers of this video. This is the Orange Fan here, bringing you another entry for the episode Recap and Thoughts category. This video will be dedicated to the A segment of episode 74 of Codename Kids Next Door, Operation Doghouse. We begin this segment with the Sector V operatives playing Cinderball, a game that involves 2x4 technology, devices, and a cinder block. Eventually, the cinder block lands in a doghouse, and this doghouse looks like a tall mansion. That's the best way I can think to describe this particular doghouse. Number 2 and number 4 are unwilling to enter the doghouse to get the cinder block because of horror stories that they heard about the place from each other, and the doghouse does look rather haunted. In the end, number 5 decides to go inside the doghouse to get the cinder block, and when number 5 does go inside the doghouse, we, the viewers, see that there's a shadowy figure inside. Number 5 doesn't see the shadowy figure, but the expression on her face indicates that she is staying alert in case any trouble shows up. An hour passes by, and number 5 is still inside the doghouse, so the 4 present Sector V operatives decide to go inside to see what's taking number 5 so long. Shortly after they decide this, they hear noise coming from inside the doghouse, so this encourages the 4 present Sector V operatives to quickly get inside the doghouse. And when they do enter the doghouse, they find number 5 at the bottom of the staircase with the cinder block. Number 5 figures that she must have fallen down the stairs, but then she encourages her teammates that they should resume the game now that they have the cinder block again. But some of the Sector V operatives say that they need the time to finish up their homework. I believe number 4 is the one who mentions that Mrs. Thompson has been giving students a lot of homework lately. So the next scene takes us to the Sector V treehouse, and it's storming outside now. Number 5 happens to be passing by number 4's room, and she sees that number 4 is struggling with his homework. So number 5 decides to help number 4 with his homework. The next scene takes us to the next day in Mrs. Thompson's classroom at Gallagher Elementary School, and Mrs. Thompson has just finished another lecture, and then number 4 tricks Mrs. Thompson into revealing when the next pop quiz is. Mrs. Thompson admits that she shouldn't have answered that question after she already answered the question, so she decides to start with number 4 when it comes to collecting homework from the students. Number 4 reaches in his backpack, but he can't find his homework anywhere. And number 4 comments that this is the third time this has happened lately. This is the third consecutive day that this has happened. So Mrs. Thompson decides to give number 4 triple the amount of homework. So a little while later, number 4 and number 5 are walking down the hallway, and number 4 is still trying to figure out why his homework has been missing these past 3 days. Number 5 suspects that Valerie might be behind this, number 5 and number 4 see Valerie a little down the hall. Yes, they see Valerie a little ways down the hall, and Valerie is talking to some other honor roll students. So number 5 approaches Valerie and voices her suspicions about Valerie being behind number 4's homework being missing. Number 5 suspects Valerie is the one who's been taking number 4's homework. Valerie does acknowledge that she is a weredog, which we saw back in the Season 3 segment, Operation Hound. But we also saw in the segment that Valerie did not like the taste of number 4's homework. Yes, number 4's homework wasn't very agreeable for a weredog, and Valerie points this fact out too. Number 5 still doesn't believe Valerie and punches a locker in frustration, accusing Valerie of lying. Mrs. Thompson arrives shortly afterwards, and Valerie takes the chance to say that number 5 was threatening her with violence. So Mrs. Thompson tells number 5 to go to her office because Mrs. Thompson has a special assignment in mind for number 5, in her words. So we're back at the Sector V treehouse, and it's nighttime, and number 4 has entered number 5's room because number 5 agreed to help number 4 with his homework tonight like she did the night before. But when number 4 enters number 5's room, he sees that number 5 is crying. Number 4 inquires about what's wrong, but number 5 insists that everything is fine. Number 4 still isn't too sure that's the case, but number 5 snaps at number 4 that she's fine. But then she quickly composes herself after that and remembers that she did promise number 4 that she would help him with his homework tonight. So number 5 proceeds to help number 4 with his homework like she did the night before. So it's later on in the night now, and we see that someone is taking the homework of number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4. Among the 4 Sector V operatives that had their homework taken just now, number 4 is the only one who was actually awake. He was merely pretending to be asleep, and he set up a plan to follow whoever has taken his homework. We then head to the Haunted Doghouse, and inside we see the identity of the one who has taken the homework of those 4 Sector V operatives. The individual's identity is number 5. And we see that Mrs. Thompson is inside the Haunted Doghouse too. Number 5 comments about how she kept her end of the deal and encourages Mrs. Thompson to hold up her end of the deal. Mrs. Thompson, however, responds that number 5 will continue to take the homework of her teammates for as long as Mrs. Thompson says. Because, yes, Mrs. Thompson responds after that the honor roll students hunger, or she says something along those lines at least. And we do see Valerie and the other honor roll students are in the Haunted Doghouse, and Valerie is not the only weredog. Yes, the other honor roll students are weredogs like Valerie. Valerie thanks number 5 for helping number 4 with his homework because she comments about how number 4's that they can actually eat number 4's homework thanks to the help number 5 has been giving number 4 with regards to the homework. So, yeah, the weredogs then proceed to eat the homework. Outside, we see number 4 has a tracker with him. It turns out number 4 put a tracking device with his homework. Yes, number 4 had a tracking device with his homework for tonight, and he's using this tracker to find the tracking device, which is where his homework is. So number 4 does reach the Haunted Doghouse, and at first he decides he just won't turn in his homework again, but then he sees number 5 being flung out of the Haunted Doghouse and rushes to help number 5. Number 5 tries to insist that number 4 shouldn't be here and insists that number 4 should return to the Sector V treehouse. Number 4, though, comments he's not going anywhere, not just because his homework is in there, but because the individuals inside the Haunted Doghouse were giving number 5 trouble just now. Number 5 yells at number 4 that she can handle this herself. Number 4's response is he knows number 5 can handle things herself, but he thinks it's still better that they work together to stop this trouble. At first, it seems like number 5 is going to argue with number 4 still, but then number 5 simply pleads for help from number 4, and number 4 assures number 5 that he will help her. So number 4 and number 5 enter the Haunted Doghouse, and they reach the room where the weredogs are. They reach the room where the weredogs are. And when the weredogs do see number 4, Valerie comments about how number 4's homework still doesn't taste too great even with number 5's help, and even though they can actually eat it without it causing them any significant trouble, to say the least. Number 4 comments that while number 5 has been helping him with his history homework, she didn't help him with his math homework. So using some 2x4 technology weapons, number 4 is launching his math homework towards the Weredogs. And yes, the Weredogs can't handle the inaccurate math homework. Number 5 has some of number 4's math homework too, and she has some 2x4 technology weapons too. So number 5 is preparing to, number 5 is threatening Mrs. Thompson with the bad homework, the bad math homework. But Mrs. Thompson laughs at this. Mrs. Thompson laughs at this attempt. She actually does eat the bad math homework without any trouble. And then Mrs. Thompson transforms into her Weredog form. She says that bad homework isn't enough to stop her, the queen of the Weredogs. After the honor roll student Weredogs have been defeated, number 4 goes to help number 5. But number 4 doesn't seem to realize that Mrs. Thompson is in Weredog form. Number 5 has to spell out for number 4 that Mrs. Thompson is the queen of the Weredogs, and then number 5 admits that she was the one who took number 4's homework and the homework of their teammates. Number 5, though, says that she wasn't aware of it at first, suggesting that hypnosis or mind control might have been involved. But then the special assignment that Mrs. Thompson had in mind for number 5 was when number 5 became aware of the fact that she was the one taking the homework. And Mrs. Thompson had promised to return number 5 to normal. Yes, afterwards, number 5 then turns into a Weredog and begins to attack number 4, with Mrs. Thompson gloating about how number 5 is one of the Weredogs. Number 4, though, like earlier in the segment, though, number 4 manages to trick Mrs. Thompson into revealing how to stop the Weredogs. Mrs. Thompson ends up revealing that in order to stop the Weredogs, the queen of the Weredogs must be defeated. And in order to defeat her, Mrs. Thompson, they need to get rid of the necklace that she's wearing, or the cursed necklace that she's wearing. Mrs. Thompson then realizes that she shouldn't have answered that question. So knowing this, number 4 does manage to... number 4 manages to fight back against number 5. He uses his bad math homework in order to knock number 5 out, and then he begins to chase after Mrs. Thompson, who tries to retreat. Mrs. Thompson heads out a balcony and to the rooftops of the doghouse. Number 4 tries to find... number 4 heads up to the balcony, and then he's cornered by Mrs. Thompson. Mrs. Thompson surprise attacks number 4 and destroys the 2x4 technology weapon that he was using. Number 5 had regained consciousness, and she followed them up to the balcony. Number 5 lunges towards number 4, but number 4 manages to get out of the way, and so number 5 ends up running into Mrs. Thompson. So number 5 and Mrs. Thompson are falling down the roof, and eventually... Mrs. Thompson is clinging to the edge of the roof while number 5 is still on the roof for the most part, and Mrs. Thompson pleads for help. Number 5 reaches to help Mrs. Thompson out, but number 5 ends up grabbing the cursed necklace instead, and Mrs. Thompson falls down, not to the ground, she falls down to a lower balcony, and she thanks number 5 before she turns back into her human form. And then number 5 and the honor roll students also change back into their human forms. So the curse has been broken now. We then cut to Mrs. Thompson's classroom in the next day. It's the next day. We're in Mrs. Thompson's classroom at Gulliker Elementary School, and Mrs. Thompson finishes a lecture on divorce law. We find out, Mrs. Thompson ends up revealing that she got the cursed necklace from her angry ex-husband, and the lesson was about how you shouldn't take cursed necklaces from angry ex-spouses, or cursed items in general, I guess. Number 4 then tricks Mrs. Thompson into answering another question. Number 4 questions why he still got a triple F- on his homework, even though he helped to save her from her Weredog curse. Mrs. Thompson's answer is that number 4 is not very smart, but then she admits that she shouldn't have answered that particular question. And that's how we end this segment. So this segment could be considered, yes, this segment continues the storyline that started in the season 3 segment, Operation Hound. So, yes, it's definitely a sequel to Operation Hound, although you might argue an indirect sequel because some time had passed since the events of Operation Hound. But yes, whether you call it an indirect or a direct sequel, it is a sequel to Operation Hound in some capacity. And we do see that, yes, Operation Hound showed Valerie to be a weredog and revealed that Mrs. Thompson was a weredog at the end of the segment. And this segment clarifies that Mrs. Thompson was the queen of the weredogs before she was cured by the end of the segment. And we also saw that the other honor roll students were weredogs too, and even number 5 became a weredog. Again, yes, in the segment, or like I mentioned in the recap, number 5 admits that she wasn't aware of the fact that she was the one who was taking number 4's homework, and I would imagine the homework of the other Sector V operatives, since she did take all of their homework towards the end of the segment. But yes, she did admit that she wasn't aware of the fact that she was behind the missing homework. So, like I said in the recap, this seems to suggest that there might have been some hypnosis or mind control in effect. And yes, but number 5 did eventually become aware of it when Mrs. Thompson mentioned the special assignment that she had in mind for number 5. And yes, we find out that Mrs. Thompson is divorced now. This actually goes along with a subtle detail. Yes, I believe in Mrs. Thompson's first appearance, she was wearing a ring, Operation Robbers, I believe. Yes, I believe in Operation Robbers, Mrs. Thompson was wearing a ring on her finger, but in her later appearances, she didn't have the ring anymore. So, yeah, that was a pretty subtle clue about the fact that Mrs. Thompson is divorced. And we found out that her ex-husband was the one responsible for giving her the cursed necklace, which turned her into the queen of the weredogs. So you could say Mrs. Thompson's ex-husband was the bigger bad or the greater scope villain for the Weredog storyline, since he was the one who started the whole thing by giving Mrs. Thompson the cursed necklace. And yeah, you could argue that this could be an example of something that can happen in real life, but taken to a more over-the-top presentation or presented in a more over-the-top manner. Because the idea of ex-spouses being angry and possibly holding grudges, unfortunately, that does happen in real life. Now, it doesn't always happen, of course. There are some ex-spouses that do get along with each other just fine. It's just that marriage just didn't work out for them, but they can still be friendly with each other or not hold any grudges or ill will. So it doesn't always happen, but unfortunately, there are some cases in real life where ex-spouses can hold grudges, to say the least. And yeah, a cursed necklace for weredogs is definitely over the top. It's definitely an over the top presentation, but the idea behind it is the same: an ex-spouse looking to get back at the other ex-spouse. So yeah, that was another situation of certain case of having some elements of truth to it, but presenting it in an over the top manner. And this segment also, yeah, I would say number 4 and number 5 were both the spotlight characters for this segment. Number 4, his homework going missing was part of the plot for this segment, and number 4 was the one who was searching for his homework, and he helped number 5 in stopping the Weredog curse. Number 5 was the one that actually removed the necklace, but number 4 was the one that tricked Mrs. Thompson into revealing that. And yeah, that was a pretty funny gag, I'll admit. Number 4 tricking Mrs. Thompson into answering questions because of the teacher instinct. I do remember some classmates of mine tried to pull that trick too, where they would have a question and trick the teacher into answering those questions. From what I recall, though, I don't think any of the teachers that I had ever fell for that trick. from what I can remember anyway. But I thought that was pretty funny. That seems in character for number 4 to do that sort of thing. And it did end up serving a good purpose when number 4 was able to find out how to stop the Weredogs. So yeah, that was pretty good. I thought that was a good call how they hinted at that with the earlier instance, and then they had that happen again to figure out how to stop the Weredogs. Now, so number 4 and number 5 were the spotlight characters for this segment, and I found that interesting because in the next segment, the sibling segment, number 4 is going to be partially the spotlight character. Another Sector V operative will be the spotlight character alongside number 4 in this segment's sibling segment. So we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But yes, you could say that episode 74 was an episode where number 4 got to share the spotlight with another Sector V operative between the two segments. And another detail is, yes, number 4 and number 5 were the spotlight characters for this segment. And this segment actually did really well at showing their bond with each other. Yes, you could say number 5 is like number 5 is like a figurative older sister to number 4. That's how I've seen some fans describe number 5's bond with number 4, and I can definitely see those sentiments. Number 5. Because I can definitely see how number 5 would be like a figurative older sister for number 4, and it was rather nice how number 5 did agree to help number 4 with his homework, even when she was being blackmailed by Mrs. Thompson and the Weredogs. It was still heartwarming all the same, and it was also heartwarming how number 4 was willing to help number 5 out with the Weredog situation, and number 4's comments were very important. Number 4 says he knows number 5 could handle things by herself, but he still thinks that it's best that they work together. That's a good lesson. Wanting to help your friend or your relative out doesn't mean that you don't think that they can handle things on their own. It's just sometimes two heads are better than one. So that's a good lesson, because I know some people might misinterpret that. Now, some people might mean well, but there's a case where you can understand both sides. Sometimes a person might mean well, but sometimes think that another person is more incompetent. They might come off viewing the other person as incompetent, even if their intentions are good. But in other cases, you can have a situation where someone might have stubborn pride and refuse to accept help because they think that it's a sign of being seen as incompetent, when that's not the case either. So I can see both sides of it, but yes, I think number 4's point, wanting to help your friends or your relatives, doesn't mean that you think they're incompetent. It just means, or that they can't do it by themselves. It's just sometimes it is better to have teamwork on your side. So I did appreciate that, and it was nice that number 4 got to be the one to express that message. And speaking of number 4, yes, while this segment did show number 4, while this segment did continue what became a bit of a tradition starting in Season 3, number 4 being exaggerated into the dumb muscle of Sector V, this segment still also showed some cleverness on number 4's part. Yes, we saw number 4 being the dumb muscle of Sector V in this segment, with how he didn't immediately realize Mrs. Thompson was a weredog, or how his homework was really bad, to say the least. But this segment still showed number 4 with some clever attributes. Yes, number 4 actually, that was very clever of number 4 to put a tracking device with his homework so that he could track whoever was taking his homework and the homework of his teammates, for that matter. And like I had mentioned earlier, I also thought it was clever how number 4 tricked Mrs. Thompson into revealing how to stop the Weredog curse. So, like I said, even if the later parts of the series did exaggerate number 4 into being the dumb muscle of Sector V, there were still some entries that did show that number 4 did have moments of being clever, and this was one of those segments. So I did appreciate that this segment in particular highlighted some clever moments for number 4. Otherwise, I would say that's probably about it, actually. So we got to see a continuation to the storyline from Operation Hound. We got to receive a little more backstory about Mrs. Thompson, and yes, we got to see the Weredog curse has been put to rest now. And number 4 and number 5 both got to be the spotlight characters. They both played a role in breaking the Weredog curse. And like I said, it was also pretty heartwarming how we got to see the bond between number 4 and number 5. Number 5 for helping number 4 with his homework, and number 4 pointing out that even if number 5 can handle things for herself, he still thinks it's a good idea to be supportive and to help his teammates and friends out. So yeah, it was a good moment. It was a good segment for both number 4 and number 5. And otherwise, yes, I would say that's it for now. So as of this video, we've now discussed the A segment of episode 74 of Codename Kids Next Door on this channel. Take care, and until next time.